On the Kinneret, the biblical Sea of Galilee casts its magic spell. Few can resist its charms. Not even local fishermen born and bred on the shores of these legendary waters, like Yuval and Moshe and Yuval Lufan from nearby Kibbutz Ginosar, whose unflagging search for ancient artifacts led them one winter's day to the now famous Galilee Boat. In 1985 and 86, a drought drastically lowered the level of the Sea of Galilee. We just knew that at last we were going to find a boat, but we didn't dream of anything so complete. Two brothers, second-generation fishermen in these bountiful waters. This time they had come up with quite a catch, an incredible harvest of history. They had no precedent to go on. Theirs was the first inland lake boat unearthed in the Mediterranean region. If this was indeed the hoped-for find, one man would know. Yuval and Moshe put the fateful question to Mendel Nun. Mendel Nun, here on what remains of the docks of ancient Susita, a Kinneret old-timer, fisherman and expert in local lore. Driven by the hope of making a discovery like this, could this be the boat of his dreams? More experts were called in. From Caesarea came Shelley Wachsman and Kurt Rave, experienced marine archaeologists who knew exactly what to look for. When we arrived, we carefully opened a small section, and what we found was a special kind of joint, mortise and tenon joints, typical of ancient ships. There and then we knew we had something old, at least as far back as the Byzantine period, if not older. This ancient construction method is what the experts were looking for. Planks were edge-joined by the mortise and tenon method and held in place with wooden tree nails. Water swelled the wood and tightened the joints. Here's a good example of this type of joint. You can see the mortise cut in the upper plank, and inside is the tenon. The wooden pegs lock the two planks, and from this angle, we see one of the wooden pins that held the whole thing together. An authentic discovery. The elation was contagious. It's hard to describe our excitement. We were literally in shock. I was overwhelmed. We were making history and rediscovering it. A landscape steeped in history. Here Christianity first took root. On this lake sailed Jesus and his disciples, and here he performed the miracles of the loaves and the fish to the astonishment of the stunned multitudes. A Jewish community thrived in the Galilee during the Second Temple period and rose up to fight against imperial Rome. Now emerging out of the mud is a tangible relic of those turbulent times. There was something special about the whole experience. On our first day, there was a sudden torrential downpour. A minute later, it stopped, and there it was, a double rainbow cascading into the Kinneret. A perfect and complete rainbow, an incredible one. We felt it was a sign that we had been given permission to touch this find. Now the digging began in earnest, without any prior preparations. News of the ancient wreck had spread like wildfire. Swarms of souvenir hunters descended on the site, threatening to pick the wreckage clean. It was necessary to work at a furious pace, propelled by a pressing sense of urgency, a feeling of taking part in a momentous mission. Almost immediately, the dig yielded up treasures: an oil lamp, an arrowhead, and a cooking pot, all typical of the Galilee in the 1st and 2nd century of the Common Era. Would these help date the nearby boat? Before we could get any answers, another crisis loomed. The rising level of the lake threatened once again to inundate the wreck. You could literally see the water coming closer and closer to the boat. He waded into the water and begged, "Stop, stop the Kinneret." And in fact, help did arrive. The guys from the kibbutz came to help? Even the kibbutz children came. They helped fill sandbags as if war had broken out. The boat emerging from the mud was a masterpiece, 27 feet long and 7.5 feet wide, beautifully constructed. But the timbers were waterlogged, like wet cardboard. To avoid stepping on the fragile vessel, the excavators dug mud by hand from a suspended platform. And to prevent the ancient timbers from crumbling into dust, it was necessary to constantly water them down, and to work round the clock, meticulously copying, recording, numbering every single plank, every nail, every joint. For shade, and to preserve the moisture, a sheet of fabric was unfurled over the emerging wreck, whose distinctive form was another clue to its age.